Welcome back to the Pioneer Sideline. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I'm your host, Blaine King. We have a few episodes left of the Pioneer Sideline before the end of the semester, and we're going to try to hash out everything before we get to that point. Today on the Pioneer Sideline, we are going to look at how the women's soccer team and the women's volleyball team fared in the NAIA National Tournament. And we will also look at two other teams that are just getting their season started, the men's and women's basketball team. And of course, we have your case of the week. But we're going to start with the women's soccer team. The women's soccer team, they had a fantastic season as they had a magical run towards the end of the season to enter the NAIA National Tournament after they won the River States Conference Tournament. I am joined by Sarah Maculin, who has all the info on what the women's soccer team did this season and how they fared against Lindsey Wilson. Now, Sarah, I know that they lost that game to Lindsey Wilson by a score of 3-0, but what was a major highlight from that game?
You got to look at the defense in this game. That offense was definitely lacking, but the defense kept them in the game. They only allowed the Blue Raiders to seven shots total, 4 on goal, and so they kept the game close. But the offense just was lacking. They weren't clicking on all cylinders. They were missing passes and a lot of missed opportunities for shots on goal.
And you mentioned how the defense was a major key to this team. The defense we saw, they were a major key, especially towards the end of the season, especially after the team started 0-5-1. The defense just locked together, and that's been a staple of Maggie Kuhn's system. What are some key defenders that really led this team defensively?
Well, you got to look at two defenders I have in mind, and junior defender Asia Pennock-Frank and senior defender Paige Manning. So you're losing Paige Manning, so that's one of the big seniors you're losing. But they both were named to first and second teams of the All-State Rivers Conference. So those two, and you got to look at freshman goalkeeper, Rebecca Cohen. I mean, she did a great job as a freshman. She had 39 total saves. She ranked number 31 in Division I for in goals against per game. So, and it's great that she's a freshman. So that's someone definitely you have to bring back and look forward to next year.
Yes, and you mentioned they're losing Paige Manning, but they're only losing a few seniors. So what are some bright spots besides the ones that you named that could definitely be a staple to this team in the future?
Yeah, they're graduating 4 seniors, but they also on their roster currently, and that's not including what they're going to get in next year, but over half the team is underclassmen. So they have a lot of girls that have room to grow. I mean, I mentioned Rebecca Cohen, also Nikki Polans. She contributed greatly on offense this year. And Izzy Hunter, she's going to be a senior next year. She led the team in assists and goals, so I look for her to have a big senior season.
All right, last question, Sarah. Is this team going to be a major key in the River States Conference, not even next year, but years after that because they're so young?
Yeah, I think they will because, I mean, you have Maggie Kuhn. She's an experienced coach. She knows how to coach a team, and they've had success the past 2 years. And like you said, with that young team, I only expect that to continue.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Now we're going to toss it over to the volleyball team who had their ups and downs all season long. We're going to toss it over to a guy who has been covering them all season, Mike Turk. Mike, what do you have for us this week?
Well, Blaine, after a disappointing showing in the River States Conference Tournament, the Pioneers had one more shot at redeeming themselves after getting upset in the first round of the conference tournament to Cincinnati Christian University. Since Point Park had claimed the best regular season record in the conference, they had earned themselves an automatic national bid. Point Park had to play someone other than Georgetown, Kentucky for the first time in 2 years. In the selection show, they were paired with number 25, Madonna, Michigan. The Pioneers traveled to Madonna's home court, where we saw a little extra volleyball in set number 1. The Crusaders had an early, comfortable lead, but Point Park came storming back to catch up. The set could have gone either way, but it was the Crusaders who would come out on top 30-28. Set 2 was not as exciting, with the Crusaders cruising to a 25-12 win over Point Park. Down 2-0, Point Park needed a win to avoid a sweep, and they would do just that as Point Park won set 3, 25-22. Now that would be the last set the Pioneers would win all season as the Crusaders clinched the match on a 25-17 victory. Setter Emily Mang in her final match for Point Park dished out 27 assists and had 7 kills. Sophomore Ashley Taylor recorded a double-double with 12 kills and 12 digs. Madonna moves on, as they will head to Iowa today to play at the NAIA Volleyball National Championship final site. As for Point Park, they finished the season with a 20-15 overall record and earned themselves 3 straight national bids and 4 in the past 6 years. Team leaders and stats for Point Park involve Ashley Taylor striking down 310 kills, Emily Mang dishing out 1,023 assists, and Shiloh Simonson with 65 aces. Sophomore Morgan D'Angelo had 411 digs, and senior Nikki Incortano recorded 149 total blocks in the middle. That was the most in the River States Conference as well. Next season, Point Park will be without setter Mang, both middles in Kirsten Burks and Incortano, and their outside hitter who plays all the way around, Shiloh Simonson. A lot of gaps to fill for head coach Mike Bruno this offseason. We'll have to wait and see what kind of talent the Conference Coach of the Year can bring in.
Mike, if the Pioneers would have won that first set, do you think the result would have been different?
That definitely would have been a huge momentum lifter in those spirits for that team. We're talking about a team that was really, really upset that they left the River States Conference as early as they did in the first round. Could it have gone a whole different way? I really think it could have. Are we ever going to know? No, we won't. That's a shame. But 30-28, they really stepped up to the plate in that one in the first set.
Okay, and Mike, you also mentioned how the Pioneers are losing 3 big names in Shiloh Simonson, Nikki Incortano, and Caitlin Burks. They all stepped up 2 years ago when this team lost a lot of their seniors from that 2014 KIAC championship team. But who do you see stepping up next year and for years to come?
Well, we've seen it from Ashley Taylor, her freshman year out of North Hills High School. Her freshman year, she was named to the NAIA All-First Team and All-First Team in the conference. And this past year, she was on the second team All-Conference. So she's been very good for the Pioneers in her first 2 seasons here. She's definitely going to be one of the ringleaders for this team, as well as the other junior. Now, the Pioneers won't have any seniors playing on the court next year unless they recruit some older talent in. But Morgan D'Angelo will also be the other junior on the team. Her and Ashley Taylor will be the oldest players on the court for Point Park. I definitely think they can rally this team with D'Angelo in the back row and Taylor on the right side.
All right, thanks, Mike, and thanks for your coverage of the volleyball team all season long. As 2 seasons come to an end, 2 more are just getting underway. When we return from break, we're going to look into how Point Park's men's and women's basketball team are going to fare for the 2016-2017 season.
We are a social people. We share our inspiration, wisdom, creations, and memories. We share what makes us laugh and what angers us. Built on the notion of a free flow of ideas, our country thrives on the freedom of speech. Without it, who would watch over our governing powers? And how would we share our history to make a difference for the future? It's this freedom to share that gives us a reason to listen.
All right, guys, any questions on scripts? We good to go?
Yep, right. Should be good.
All right, great. All right, yeah, camera 3 set up right there. Camera 2. All right. Use the ball when you're moving this around, but set up for the 2 shot just right there. Weather, how we doing?
It gon' rain.
Perfect.
Welcome back to Daybreak. I'm Sarah Mackin with your sports.
The real host, Adrian Billon, was seen snuggled up.
All right, prompter. We got everything in. We're good to go? Key Pro, everything loaded. We're good to go? All right. Tyler, any questions?
That shot looks fine.
3, 2, 1. Bring up camera 2. Open mics. Cue talent.
Good morning and welcome to Daybreak. I'm Blaine King.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Aubrey Henkin.
And I'm Aaron Myler.
And this is Entertainment on Point.
Beyonce has surprised us again.
Kanye West just tweeted.
This was a huge weekend at the box office.
A fan favorite TV show just got canceled.
Guess what band is coming to the city? And the award went to...
But did you see her engagement ring?
Her outfit was awful.
I would fire her stylist. Tune in for all of your Hollywood gossip and pop culture news.
Entertainment on Point.
Get to the point of pop culture.
Welcome back. The Point Park's men's basketball team enters the 2016-2017 season, coming off of a magical run in the KIAC title from last year, just falling short in the semifinals. So I'm joined again by Mr. Mike Turk and by Paul Daniels, so we can discuss what this team is going to kind of look like this year. Now, they go into this year with a lot of questions because they lost a lot of key players from last year. Jeremy Williams, to name one. Calvin Goodwin was a big one that they lost. He was a big contributor last year. There was also TJ Lanier and then Yandel Dennis. Yep. So who should be a team that somebody on the team that should be stepping up for them? If it's a Saeed Allen or an Art Christian or one of the.
Well, that's it right there. I'd say Art Christian. This is his, I believe, 3rd year on the team, and he's a senior this year, so he has to step it up. Of course, you mentioned the loss of Kelvin Goodwin, Jeremy Williams. Those were their 2 go-to guys, and they're going to have to find a way to take that next step from role player into a star for their team.
Yeah, Art has had a little shaky start to the season. They're sitting at 2-4 right now. I've been shooting a little cold. We saw him start earlier in the season. I like Saeed Allen really stepping up for this team this year. Last year, he was this secret weapon off the bench. They had a guy who could really shoot the 3 ball. Exactly, the 6th man for this team. And now he's started all 6 games so far for the Pioneers this season. I really see him stepping up, and there's a lot of shots to be left on that court this year. Goodwin and Jeremy Williams alone took 44% of the shots last year. There are so many shots available for Allen this year. I think he could be the leading scorer on this team.
Now, one thing for sure is this team is not about defense.
Oh,
and
gosh,
we'll get to the system in a little bit, but should there be kind of any hope for defense, especially from Lasana Kenyate or Art Christian, who actually did play some adequate defense last year at times?
Adequate defense. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. You know, this has been going on for years now, ever since we've been here at least. Defense hasn't been the most important part of Point Park basketball for the men's side, but you know, it's always been outscoring the other opponent and focusing on the offense and scoring a ton of points. So until I see, you know, consistent defensive work every week, I can't really say this is going to be a defensive powerhouse.
I mean, we covered these games all last season, gentlemen. It's you hardly see any defense out of these guys. Like Paul just said,
or passes.
We're not going to stop you. We're just going to outscore you. And they take the first available shot, like you said. There's a lot of assists that could have happened on that court, and it can get frustrating sometimes to watch. Even as a fan, I'm sure that these guys want to start playing some defense and start winning more basketball games in a tough conference this year.
Okay, and then Mike, you mentioned 2-4 start. Now, 3 of those 4 losses came from top 20 NAIA teams, even the number 1 team in, which was, I'm losing the team right now, but I'll get to it in a second. But how big should that start? How important is it right now, especially losing to the top 3 NAIA teams?
It's really testing their character. Like you said, the number 1 team, the number 7 team, and the number 19 teams in the NAIA. Can't be as bad as Asbury, though, playing Kentucky.
Yes. That's another story for another day.
This is really battle testing them here early in the year, seeing how they can handle this adversity they're facing so far this season, losing 3 starters from last year and your 2 top scorers and all conference players. This is probably one of the toughest part of their schedules this year, obviously, and the most important games come in the conference.
Yeah, and, you know, it hasn't been promising, the start, obviously.
No.
They have played some tough opponents, but then again, they barely beat Penn State Fayette.
Yes.
And they beat them twice, but one was by 3, and the other was by 20, and they, you know, that's a team you should beat by a larger margin than what they did.
Yeah, that's the thing we're going to have to look for this year, inconsistencies. Very inconsistent team last year. They might go get a big win, and then the next game they'll play down to their opponent. They need to eliminate that this year.
And one thing that we have to talk about is Coach Rager, who is at the beginning of the season, they said he took a leave of absence, and now it's saying that he actually has stepped down as a coach, and assistant coach Gabe Bouban is taking over as interim coach. And he's kind of, so far, you're seeing he's getting more players into the game because Coach Rager ran that system where it was 5 players, 6, 7 maybe. Yeah. But now Coach Bubam's going to the bench a little bit. So how big of a difference is Coach Bubam going to be for this team?
You know, it could be uplifting. We'll see. He's been with the team for a while, assistant coach. I don't know how many years.
I think 12 years.
He's been there for a while.
And he's played for the team too.
He knows the system, and he knows these players from last year. So we'll have to take it by ear, and we'll see what happens in his future. I will say, you know, you mentioned with the playing players per minute, that will probably go down because we were seeing Jeremy Williams and Kelvin Goodwin
out there
put
for
up 38
out of
of the 40
minutes.
minutes. And that's just crazy. You're running them into the ground, and they're not going to have enough energy in the later part of the season.
We knew Bubam would eventually take over this team. I don't think any of us really expected it to be as sudden as this year. But, yeah, hopefully Bubam adjusts that system with these players playing 38 minutes. Everybody gets tired. I know these guys are collegiate athletes, but you're going to get tired.
Yeah. Just run, especially running the system that they're running.
Exactly, up and down the court.
Get the rebound, run down court, and, all that.
I guess they save some energy by not playing defense. But
potentially. All right, gentlemen, stay put, though, right now, because we're going to toss it to break. But when we return, we're going to look at the women's basketball team next. And it was St. Francis.
Here on the Pioneer Sideline, we talk a lot about sports in the studio, but it's beforehand when the conversation is actually interesting.
I hope I have enough powder on. I don't want to be too shiny on camera.
No, Trevor, I think it looks good. Every week you pull it off.
Ah, thanks, Phil. Man, your hair looks great tonight, by the way.
You sure? Yeah, I mean, I got a new haircut, but it looks all right.
Hey, guys. Does this make me look fat?
No, you look great. You look good.
Yeah,
Kyle.
Thanks. I was really...
Sports, yeah.
Ever wanted to be behind the mic and have the world listening to your show on campus? Well, it's just as simple as joining WPPJ, Point Park's student-run radio station, located on the second floor of Lawrence Hall, right next to the dining services. Listeners can tune in using Point Park's website or through the TuneIn app by searching WPPJ. WPPJ welcomes any new DJs that want to get involved, so be heard. Do you have what it takes?
Well, no one showed up to the show tonight. Follow my lead. In 3, 2, take 2, open mics, cue talent. Good evening and welcome to UView News. I'm Josh Krupp. We begin with breaking news out of West Penn Hall. Ready, 3, take lower third. Traffic is backed up in the West Penn elevator line after elevator 1 broke down on the 7th floor. Lose lower third. Maintenance advises students to take the stairs to avoid delays. Ready, 2, take 2. In other news, no, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. We need crew. Join UView. Take alien hand transition.
Welcome back. We just got done talking about the men's basketball team, and now we're going to flip it over to the women's. But first, that number 1 team I was trying to think of was St. Francis. That's who that was the number 1 team in the NAIA. But the women's team, they're coming off of a 19-11 season from last year, which was kind of an inconsistent year from our standpoint. Paul, I know, Mike, you were new to the game last year, and you were just getting noticeable with them. But usually this team is playing pretty adequate. I mean, pretty top-level notch, and we're starting to see that right now as they started the season off 8-1 under Coach Grenick, who's returning again and looking to take his team to the national tournament. So what should we look from this team for this year?
Well, Blaine, it was very interesting last year. We know Coach Grenick wasn't very happy with the way his team performed last year, as being possibly a little soft of a team and a little undersized as well, but he still managed to have his team finish 19-11. This season, it's going to be very interesting. I expect more scoring and more full-court press from this team because they have the athletic ability to do it this year. So far, they've played 9 games this year. They are 8-1. At this time last season, they were 7-2. It's a very similar start, averaging about 73 points per game these past 2 seasons through this point. Only difference is they're allowing 11 less points on average this season. So that defense has already tightened up so far this year, even down 2 starters.
Yeah, you know, this like you mentioned, this team last year in the conference tournament didn't do what they wanted to do.
No.
So maybe they'll have some of that, you know, redemption and revenge going into this season with the players returning. I know I expect one of the players, Carly Force, to step up and have a bigger impact on this team than she did last year. And then you also have some players that are returning that we haven't seen in quite some time with Jania McFadder and
Sam Weir.
Sam Weir. So that's an interesting storyline. And obviously we just got an update on with Sam Weir's injury, but
yes, with Sam Weir being out a few months because of her injury. Other injuries that we're seeing is also Caitlin Smith. She's out too. And Sam Weir is going to be a big part of this team probably down the line if they continue their success, because her and Carly Force 2 years ago, Paul, they had a great chemistry. Yeah, great tandem, and it caused a lot of coaches to double cover Weir, and that left Force open,
shots.
And Force was able to get the outside. Offensively, who should be a standout? Because Caitlin Smith was kind of it last year. Years past, we saw Kelly Johnson. She was one. Even Kayla Kiddio, she was another one. But who should be a scoring force for this team?
Well, I'm going to go with the freshman. She's been playing off the bench these first 9 games this year. Tyra James, this girl can shoot the 3 ball really well this year. She's already made 21 in 9 games, and she's shooting 41%, which is, I expect that to raise. But she is a scoring threat for this Point Park team, and definitely another weapon off the bench, like Saeed Allen, we were saying, was the 6th man last year. I expect her to keep being that 6-man type role, but eventually work her way into that starting rotation this year.
I'm looking at a player who was starting to develop towards the end of the year, and that's Bailey Bulica.
Yes.
Well,
Bulica.
Now. So it's Bulica now. We've been saying it wrong for the past how many years?
Yeah.
But anyways, I look for her to step up and have a bigger impact on this team, especially, you know, she's going to probably, I don't know if has she been starting, or I'm pretty sure she'll be
ever since Weir's went down, more games.
Key, more impact role when Weir's absence just happened.
And you mentioned how you're gonna you see Tyra James as being that kind of 6th person off the bench, that 6th woman off the bench. Kind of seen that kind of role from Alexa Zanakis last year when she was thrust into the starting lineup, but she'd rather be that person coming off the bench. But James, being a freshman, she's probably looking forward to working her way inside that starting lineup.
We saw a lot of production out of Caitlin Smith starting her freshman year last year. Caitlin Smith wasn't the big scoring threat, but she is a solid point guard to have, and the kind of player Coach Grenick will love to have, who will dive on the floor for that extra effort play every time. And she was leading the team in assists before she went down with that foot injury.
Yes.
The X factor of this team and the heart and soul is Shania Rivers, and her defense on. She's not the biggest.
She's not 5'4".
Not the biggest player out there,
Shorter
but she
than me.
Always plays a factor on defense.
Yeah,
those 50-50 balls.
Yes.
And she's always been the heart and soul of this team. And I look for, you know, this team has potential.
It does.
So we'll see, and we'll see how far they take that potential going forward.
Last point. Coach Grenick, like we said, he's the all-time best coach for women's basketball here at Point Park, and his coaching has been great. And I think this team is a team that he has confidence in. How far can this team go come River State's conference tournament time? Because they're off to an 8-1 start, and, unless the unthinkable happens, I don't see them getting slowed down too much. They might have 5 losses. But I don't see them having 11 losses like last year. How far can this team go into the tournament?
Well, you always got to give respect to the defending conference champions, and that's Asbury. They beat IU East last year. IU East is bringing back 2 players who are juniors this year who are all-conference first team. So IU East is
one that we still
there's probably a road you're going to have to take to get to the finals this year if you don't see them in the finals.
It's definitely going to be a challenge, especially with some of their injuries. Maybe they return, though, and we'll see. But Coach Grenick knows what to do, and they actually played a Division I opponent this year, Robert Morris. So
and they
that
played
shows
them tough too.
they only lost by like 15 to 20 points, And that shows the confidence you mentioned in what Greenock has in this team.
Yes, and Mike, you mentioned IU East. That's always going to be a team to watch out for because when they start getting into conference play, Point Park and IU East, they always seem to have some memorable games. I remember one game where their coach got ejected from the game, and IU East still ended up winning. So it's going to be interesting to see how this women's team play out. I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be a great season for them in that they're going to might have to go through IU East, but they have that firepower. All right, thanks, gentlemen. And when we return from break, it's college football time. We have our conference finals, our tournament, set. And will a team sneak into the playoff, the Final Four? We're going to discuss that when we return.
It's been the most unpredictable election in U.S. history.
And on November 8th, we'll bring you the historic conclusion.
Donald Trump,
Hillary Clinton,
Pat Toomey,
Katie McGinty.
America is writing the next chapter in its history book, and UView is your only source for election night coverage. Election Night 2016, live from the Center for Media Innovation, Tuesday, November 8th at 8 p.m., only on UView.
Every human being has a purpose, has a dream to have their voices heard, no matter where they come from, no matter where they go. As an American, it is their right to have freedom of speech. I have a dream that one day this message will speak louder than words, that even the quietest voice will not go unnoticed. That is my dream. What is yours? For more information, visit www.freedomofspeechpsa.org.
Welcome back, and to finish up the Pioneer Sideline on a strong note, we have your case of the week. And joining me once again, Paul Daniels.
What do you know?
Trevor
Hey, what about?
and Phil Papore. Gentlemen, before we went on break, we talked about the college football playoffs, and you guys were half right and half wrong. I don't know. Y'all all had Louisville as number 2,
Yeah,
including
that was
me.
a mistake. Yeah,
Complete
we
mistake.
Louisville.
Yeah. So all right.
We followed Paul. What were we thinking?
I know. That's why you never
stop
follow
it.
the hype. So to finish up, we're going to talk about who is going to be the Final Four in, who's going to be in the championship game, and who, besides Alabama, could win the championship, and that could actually compete with Alabama. So who's going to be our next 4 in?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously Alabama.
Chalk
that
it.
is a
Sure?
preset.
I
You
don't
you
know,
always
it's looking
just.
a little shaky.
Are we chalking them?
You know, if you're
Are
going to
we
argue
chalking
this, you might as well just lose this argument, because Alabama is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the top defenses in the league, most consistent in college football in the past 10 years. All right, so then we have them at number 1.
Roll Tide.
We got Ohio State, who just knocked off Michigan, number 2, and they were number 2 before they did that, so they stay there.
Makes
Then
sense.
Clemson, at number 3, and I'm going to go outsider, number 4, not Washington, what everyone's saying.
Okay.
We go Penn State, Nittany Lions
Penn State.
football,
Penn State
baby.
sneaking in.
Nittany Lions.
Penn State sneaking in with the upset over Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, Paul.
Yes, they win the Big Ten. Obviously, I have them winning that if they're going to make the 4. But they have a chance.
Washington would have to lose, and
say,
you
yeah,
think
so
they're going to hop Michigan.
Right, Washington. There would have to be some things that would have to happen. Of course, this isn't a shoo-in.
Mhm.
This is a underdog prediction,
Yes.
and I'm going with it.
All right, Trevor.
Well,
All right. My top 4 is how it's currently structured in this week's projections. I have Alabama 1. They're going to beat Florida in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
And even if they lose,
Yeah,
that's still only
very-
one loss in the
yeah.
season. They will be in, but they'll be the number 1. And then number 2, I also have Ohio State. They've only lost once. They don't have that extra game to risk losing another one, so they're going to be in. Clemson, I don't think will have a problem with Virginia Tech, even though they're having a great season. I don't think Virginia Tech has enough to upset Clemson. And then number 4, I have Washington because I like Colorado. They've had a great season from worst to first in the Pac-12, but they just don't have enough to deal with the Washington offense. So I have what is basically established right now as the top 4.
Right. And Phil.
Yeah, the top 3, Alabama, obviously. Number 1, as Paul and Trevor so eloquently said. Ohio State, also number 2. Yeah, Clemson, you're right. They're going to beat Virginia Tech. They stay 3. I do like the Penn State pick, but I'm going to stick with what I said earlier when you guys ragged on me, picking Wisconsin. I'm going to put Wisconsin to beat Penn State and get in the top 4.
Okay, so we have numbers 1, 2, 3, all the same.
Right.
And then we have Penn State, Washington, and Wisconsin. All right, so Wisconsin, it seems like, Phil, if Penn State does beat Wisconsin, do you think they'll get in to Penn State will sneak into the top 4?
The thing is, we were talking about this earlier, and I like Michigan. I like Michigan as a team. The way that they lost in double overtime to Ohio State, I mean, that is such a close matchup. I think they deserve to be in the top 4, but it's hard to put Ohio State and Michigan in when neither of them played in the Big Ten championship. If you can have Penn State, or Wisconsin win that, I think it's hard to keep them out and put Michigan in when they didn't even get into the championship.
It's tough to, with Michigan, though, is you're telling me the team that you beat, and not just beat, destroyed in Penn State and has the same record wins losses wise, they're a better team.
It is tough.
That is tough, but then you have Penn State who beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State didn't get to the Big Ten championship either. And it's tough. The Big Ten is crazy this year.
It really is, and it came down to that one game with Michigan and Ohio State.
Yep,
it was almost like a playoff game, and it's unfortunate because there's only 4 teams, and there is some value to the conference tournament. Obviously, that's not the most important thing.
Right.
But Michigan, it's sad to see that we're not gonna see one of the top defenses and top teams in the top 4.
I mean, just think of the outcry. I mean, if Michigan and Ohio State gets in over whatever Wisconsin Penn State wins, I mean, the outcry from that's going to be unbelievable.
Well, for me with Penn State, though, is that, and I know there's going to be a little bias here, I admit it, but outside of that Ohio State win, what's their signature win? They don't really have one. Pitt, which is now a top 25 team, they lost to. Michigan, the top 5 team, they lost to. It was just that Ohio State victory.
But then again, I mean, they've still got the job done in the conference.
Yeah, they still took care of the conference.
And they're in the conference championship. If they win that, that's another notable win, and they're underdogs. So, I mean, I look at it this way, no one else beat Ohio State, so.
And you could also look at it the fact that Michigan, they lost to Iowa.
Yeah.
Granted, they did go to
By
Iowa,
one.
but Iowa was not a it's not a Power Force team, so that's something they also have to consider. Now, Trevor, you have Washington in.
Yes.
Which they can be a Cinderella team because what Chris Peterson did with that team, and just how he turned them around is great. What happens if they do lose to Colorado?
Oh, I mean, they'll drop out.
Yes,
I think actually what would happen if Washington does lose to Colorado is that I think Michigan will take that spot. I think actually, because I think the college football playoff guys will love the matchups, they'll actually jump Michigan up to 3. Have Ohio State, Michigan in the one semifinal, Alabama, Clemson in the other one, because it's good TV.
Yeah, I actually can see that.
I mean, that would be good TV.
Devalues the conference tournament, though.
Well, yeah,
that's going to be hard to do.
I mean, they're already devaluing it in that Michigan dropped 2 spots this week. They dropped to 5. They're still ahead of both Wisconsin and Penn State. They go 5, 6, 7.
Well, in my eyes, they're a top 14. I mean, there's no, but they just have 2 losses. So,
could you see Colorado jumping up into the top 4? I mean, if Penn State does beat Wisconsin, you mentioned how Penn State's only signature win, if they do win, will be against Wisconsin and Ohio State. Then you have Wisconsin, who already had lost. So Colorado already jumps up to 6. Then you look at that Michigan game. Colorado, they have. I mean, the Pac-12 is not a too shabby of a division. I mean, you don't have your Oregon, but you see USC. They came up, Washington State, and then Washington. Colorado may have an argument.
I think with any of these 2-loss teams, it has to be staggering victories. Like Colorado has to destroy Washington.
Yeah.
I think for either Penn State or Wisconsin as well. It has to be a very one-way victory for them, like a blowout for them really to be able to jump up to that 4th spot if everything else goes the way
I
we
think
assume.
that's the only thing that kept Michigan in it. The fact that they went to double overtime and lose by 3. That was
in
it.
the
I mean,
horseshoe.
Yeah.
That's such a tough place to play.
Yes. Alrighty, so which team can actually hang in there with Alabama? Because, I mean, if you look at it, if you say it stays the same, however your predictions go, Penn State, Alabama, Washington, Alabama, Wisconsin, Alabama. Okay. Ohio State may give them a run for their money as well. Clemson also could do that. But which team, even if they're not in the top 4 right now, could go toe-to-toe with Alabama and threaten them for that national championship?
Well, I mean, I would say if Michigan were to make it, they would be the team. And that would be because I think their defense is better than Alabama's. As a surprise, I mean, Alabama has a great defense, but Michigan has been the most consistent all year. And I mean, yeah, they don't have the best quarterback, but Alabama doesn't have the best quarterback either. So
it would be a defensive battle.
It would be a huge defensive battle, and that would be the team.
I mean, the whole season, Michigan's only given up more than 15 points 3 times.
Yeah.
Colorado scored
impressive.
28, but they won 45-28. Michigan State scored 23, and then 27 Ohio State in a loss. So more than 15 points 3 times throughout the whole season. That's impressive.
And Ohio State, Alabama, they're not always about their offense. They're more about their defense. And I mean, 2 defenses going toe-to-toe.
I would say one team not in that top 4 that I would love to see the matchup with, actually, I don't know if they'd win or not. Oklahoma State. Very quiet team this year. Probably should be in that top 4 if it wouldn't been for that controversial loss to Central Michigan.
Which is always good, which is going to come back.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thing is like their offense is spectacular. And Alabama's offense is decent, but not great. It's their defense is keeping them in. And Alabama has not faced really an offense of which even any of the Big 12 teams have an offense that really Alabama has not seen this year. I think Oklahoma State could give them a run for their money if they pull the upset over Oklahoma and a lot of these other chips kind of fall. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, OK State, they're sitting at number 10 right now in their current rankings. They got to beat Oklahoma. They got to hope. I mean, at Colorado, Washington, with Penn State, Wisconsin.
It's tough.
They'd have to jump a lot of people.
It will have to be tough. All right, gentlemen, we're going to discuss this one more time next week when we know who's going to be in the Final 4.
That's it.
All right. And I thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Pioneer Sideline. We hope you tune in again next week as we cover more basketball, Pioneer sports, and then we're also going to get into some cases of the week as well.
Can't wait.
Yes,
Oh, boy.
and it's also the final episode for a few of our folks here as well, so it's going to be an emotional day. But please join us again next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer place, and of course, the same Pioneer Sideline.
Giants suck.